Right here and right now, we shine in the house of love. I invite you to take this moment, lower your eyes, close them, feel the breath, feel it fully in your body temple. Right here and right now, we invoke our awareness mentally, emotionally, physically, with the divine. We are present, awake, and aware, engaged as we take part in the practice of our service. We give thanks for all that has made today's service possible: sound, music, inspiration, children, participants, both in person and online. We give thanks for saying yes to the sacredness of exploration and a deeper understanding of connection with the divine. And for this and so much more, we give thanks. We have a special lighting of the candle today. Two people from the chorus who will introduce themselves and explain our candle lighting service. So thank you.
Yes, so it is Hanukkah, and we're going to say the Jewish prayer for candle lighting, sing it actually, and then we're going to light the Hanukkah candles. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the world, who made us holy through your commandments and commanded us to light the Hanukkah light. Mm-hmm. So Hanukkah is 8 days, and today is the third going into the fourth day. So each day you light one more candle. And it is a symbol of light and peace and love that we all can share.
Beyond the inspirational laughter, every person represents an individualization of universal wholeness, the love, peace, joy, and freedom of spirit. The power of spirit expresses through every atom of our being, now and in this moment. This is written by our founder, Ernest Holmes, from the book Spiritual Awareness, page 74.
And the short answer is this. I get to. I can do what I want. And people have, I always used to wear a suit, but I was told that I'm more approachable if I would dress more casually. And I certainly don't want to be unapproachable, so I dressed more casually. But I'm old school, and I believe that it's important for me to dress to show respect for the philosophy and for you, for the congregation, whether you're physically here, whether you're online, and that's just me. So you're in a suit. Get over it.
With a snazzy tie. I know.
It is. It's a Norman Rockwell tie. About 3 weeks ago, a little less, I was trying to put together something for the month of December. The theme from National is wholeness. That's a great theme. I think that sometimes we go out of our way to honor all faiths, all traditions, lifestyles, backgrounds, and that's wonderful, but sometimes I think we forget Christianity. That happens to be a pretty big religion in this country. And one of the most important days in Christianity is Christmas. And so I was sitting with trying to put together Christmas and the birth of Jesus of Nazareth and Santa Claus and, and meld all this. How are we going to do this? And when I think sometimes, I come here and I come to this sanctuary and I sit in the dark usually and kind of let things unfold. And what dawned on me, we have these banners that we put up at Christmas: light, love, joy, peace. And these are the very things that so many different religions, so many different faith patterns, belief systems embrace, along with Christianity, Judaism, other faiths, the indigenous peoples. Let's just talk about those. So I reached out to the other speakers that are going to be speaking this month and said, hey, what do you guys think of this? And taking these concepts and tying them together with wholeness. And usually it takes some people a few days to respond. Wow, boom, I got answers back in minutes, and they both agreed. So I was supposed to do joy last week, but I had a little issue. I really wasn't fatally ill or anything, but my condition prohibited me from attending. And so poor Kaleem got a call at 8:30 in the morning to come in and do the talk. And he did a phenomenal job. And so I really want to thank Linda and Kaleem for pulling it off last week. But they're seasoned pros. They can do it. So thank you both. So our theme for this month is wholeness, and the title of my talk today is Embracing Joy. I'm going to kind of continue on with a little bit of what Kaleem did last week. And my 3 points today: 1, we are meant to be happy. Number 2, I want to talk a little bit about the joy of Christmas. And number 3 is that Spirit, God, the thing itself, whatever name you choose, it's for us, not against us. It's not here to judge us, to beat us up, to punish us. It's for us. So, first, we are meant to be happy and joyful. But you know what? This time of year, there's a lot of us aren't so happy and joyful. So what is keeping joy at bay? What is keeping it away? And I think that there are several things, but to me, I think the biggest one that I see is that we are looking for that joy outside of ourselves. We're looking for it in the gifts and the gatherings and all of the other things outside of ourselves. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was a young man who decided to devote his life to finding truth and to finding his connection with a higher power, to find joy and the meaning of joy. And so he dedicated his life to this, and he started going around the country looking for truth and joy. Well, one day he met an old woman, and she was kind of bent. Might have been called a witch. And he asked her, and she said, no, no, no. And she gave him directions to go to a mountain. And he told him to climb the mountain a certain way, and there he would find a cave. And he was to enter the cave and follow her directions inside the cave, turn here, turn there. And he would come upon a pool, a pond. And he could ask this pond, this well, his question, and it would be answered. And so he followed her directions, and he went and he found the mountain right where she said it was going to be, and he started hiking up the way she told him to, and he went up, and sure enough, there was the cave, and he entered the cave, and he followed the directions, and sure enough, there he came to the water. He came to the well, to the pond, and he asked the pond, what is truth? What is joy? And the pond answered and told him to go back to the little village that he'd been in. And at the main crossroads in the village, he would find the answer. And so he excitedly left, and he went back into the village, and he went up to the crossroads, and there were 3 very nondescript little stores. They really weren't much. And he looked, and the first one was selling like some wires and metal parts and screws and things. I didn't know what that was. So he went to the next store, and it was selling little pieces of wood, odd pieces, odd shapes of wood. I don't know, what is that all about? And then he went to the third one, and then it was selling odd pieces of metal, little flat pieces of metal. And once again, what does this have to do with truth and joy? Well, he thought that he'd been made a fool of by the old lady. So he went back to the mountain. He went up, he went into the cave, and he went to the pool, and he asked, what is all this? You told me that I would find what I am looking for. And the pool answered him and said, you will in time. Well, he thought, what's this? So he left, and he continued his search the rest of his life. He walked many, many miles. He went all kinds of different places. And one evening, it was late, he walked into a small village. Boy, it really resonates with that. It reminds me of the Camino, and sometimes walking into a small village, and you can see a light in the window, and you can see the people eating or doing whatever. And I really felt like that. I could identify with this young man, this soul that was seeking. And as he walked through the village, he heard this beautiful, beautiful sound. And he was just transfixed by it. And it was the sitar. And it caught his attention, and he went and he listened at the window. He looked in. He saw the sitar. And as he looked at it, it was beautiful and had been played with great mastery and inspiration. He was deeply moved, and he sat before the sitar player. He looked at the musician's fingers move over the strings and began to intently see the sitar itself. In that moment, the truth that he sought was revealed. The sitar was made out of wires, out of pieces of metal, and out of wood. Just like those that he had seen all the years before at that crossroads. And then he understood the message of the well. He had already been given everything that he needed. And I think we're like that. We've already been given everything that we need for happiness, for joy, for truth. And it's not out there. It's in here. Kaleem, last week, did such a masterful job, and he talked about finding joy. Just open yourself. And where do we find that joy? We find that joy in the giggles of a baby, in grandma hugs, in the wagging of a tail, and in soft sunrises. And that, I submit, is the joy. What about the joy of Christmas? Oh, it's been said that it is in the giving that we receive. Maybe we better be paying attention to what it is we are giving. Found this story, a lady by the name of Virginia Adams of Alton, New Hampshire, told a powerful story. Her dad, who was 80, and he was really feeling down. As Christmas approached, his wife of many, many, many years had passed away a couple years before, and Virginia could tell how sad he was, and she wanted to try and cheer him up. She wanted to get him involved, and so she could have been coming here. She said, well, Dad, why don't you join the choir? They always expand their choir for Christmas time. Why don't you come and join the choir at church? And he had a beautiful, beautiful voice, and he used to sing with his wife. They were really beautiful singers, and he said, nah, it wouldn't be any fun without your mother. And then she said, she thought about it, and the next day or so she said, well, how about if you take some gifts down to the senior center and give some of the people in the senior center some gifts? And giving away will make you feel better. And so I said, okay. And so she had like 20 pair of earrings that she didn't wear anymore that she thought might be good she could give away. And so she gave him these 20 pair of earrings, and he took them down to the senior center and passed them all out. And the recipients were all happy. They really were great. And when he came home, he was still kind of sad. And she asked him, why? And he said, they didn't even talk to me. They just wanted the earrings. And so she said, well, day after tomorrow, we're going to have Christmas dinner over at Kathy's. That was her sister. And she said, why don't you take something to the Christmas dinner? She said, why don't you be nice? Why don't you get some flowers for the table decoration? You can take some nice flowers, and that'll make Kathy happy, and she'd really like that. And he said, no, they're just leaving for lower 48 the next day, warm climate. They just go to waste. And she said, well, can't you think of something else that maybe you could give her? Maybe, why don't you give her a book? You've got that huge bookcase at home. Why don't you take a book that you think she would like, and she can read it on the plane on the way down and back? And he thought, and he said, okay, that's pretty good. And he looked at his big bookcase, and he looked it over and over, and he selected a book. It was called The Miracle of Healing. And his wife had given him that book several years before, and he'd never even opened it. It had been sitting there unopened on his big bookcase for some years. And so he re-gifted the book, and he gave it to Kathy, and she was so excited, and she tore open the wrapping paper, and she got it, and she opened it up. She opened the book, and as sometimes people do, she sort of thumbed through it, and out fell a piece of paper. And looked down, and this is what was written on the little piece of paper. to my honey. I sing your praises and thank you for my happy days. You are the greatest man I know, kind and good and patient too, talented in all you do. Our children are marvelous too. There was silence in the room for a moment. And then Dad said, that is the best Christmas present ever. Third point, Spirit is helping us. To me, it is irrational to believe that the infinite creative force of the universe, God, Spirit, the thing itself, would create all of everything and create us to be miserable, to be lonely, to be sick. No, I don't believe that. I believe that that infinite creative force is within each and every one of us all the time. And it is trying to help us all the time. And if we'd only get our bloated nothingness out of the way, that it would let us. I was looking for a story to support that point, and this really doesn't hit it, but in a way it does. There is a place in Los Angeles, it's called Watts Towers. Watts Towers were made, erected by an Italian immigrant, Simon Rodia, Simon Rodio. And he created these between 1921 and 1954. There's 17 soaring structures. And these things are made out of discarded construction material. They are made out of scrap metal, mortar, glass, ceramics. And he created these things over these 33 years using only hand tools. Not a power tool was ever used. Well, in 1959, the city of Los Angeles, in its infinite wisdom, decided that these things should be torn down. They weren't engineered properly. They were just cobbled together. These things are probably a health hazard. They're going to fall down and squish somebody or whatever. And so they came out with their big crane, big wire, cable, and they're going to pull these things over, and they hooked up their cable and they started pulling, and they burned up the motor on the crane, and it hadn't even moved. So they figured, well, it must have been a bad motor or something. They brought in a bigger crane. It couldn't move them either. Now, Simon Rodia didn't have an engineering degree. He didn't have a background. He didn't have anything. But he had something that was far more important. He had divine inspiration. He was guided by that infinite creative force, and he allowed that to flow through him and create something that even the city of Los Angeles' most powerful cranes couldn't pull down. So they gave up and left it. And to my knowledge, it's still there today. And I submit that that power, that presence, that infinite intelligence is within us. You see, it's just like our truth seeker. It's just like our joy seeker. It's already within. We can just allow it to come out. So the conclusion, what I want you to take away today, it is Spirit's great desire that we experience a life of joy and happiness, to live a life of wholeness. We were created in the full expression of the life and the power that created the universe, and we have been given the depth of heart and the tools to elevate our awareness to the level of a whole life. Our charge is to do the work. We're to cultivate the perception of oneness through our prayers, meditation, and to find the joy in the baby's giggle, in grandma's hug, the wagging tail, and the soft sunrise. And so with that awareness, I invite my colleagues, practitioners to join me and all of us in recognizing that that infinite power, God, Spirit, is indeed within each and every one of us. And so this holiday season, whether we celebrate Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, Christmas, Druid expressions, whatever faith tradition we embrace, we allow that infinite creative force to move through us. And simply know, as Kaleem said last week, that there are storms in life. And sometimes it's just a breeze, and sometimes it's a gale, and sometimes it's a Category 5 hurricane, but always above that Category 5 hurricane, we know that that sun is shining. We know that that infinite presence is always with us, and we allow it to guide us, to help us, to overcome loneliness, to overcome dis-ease, to overcome separation. And so I just give thanks. We give thanks for our awareness of the power and the presence of God. We let it go. We let it be. And so it is. Amen. Namaste.